Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Ty from the Unemployed Architects. This week, I have a lot of I think I've counted 10 shows I have to talk about. I've had a couple guests on, so I haven't really gotten around to doing the recaps quite as often. So that'll be what I'm doing today. I'm not going to list them all at the beginning. I'm just going to kind of go through them one by one, and because really, I haven't done ones like I haven't covered since the beginning of July. So, and it's the 19th. So, and this last week has been a crazy, lots of shows. So, let's just get into it here. I had Door 4 Brewing. It was my first show back over there in a while, and it was a little bit slow, especially at first. It was like kind of weather wasn't great in the morning, but by the time I got there, they were like, "Oh, it hasn't rained here all day," and it seemed pretty nice out, and so I was like, "Okay, I want to play outside. I'll definitely set up outside," and got there early enough to take my time, and I definitely did that, and I had about 20 minutes till I was supposed to start. Of course, it started raining. Didn't get too crazy, but it definitely discouraged some people from sitting outside that may have. And I don't know. It was weird. It was like the garage door was kind of open, so because they have this big garage door that opens to their outside beer garden. So I was kind of in front of that, playing to nobody on where I'm facing, but there were some people, in the bar that could hear me. They were kind of listening and paying attention, but it just felt real awkward there for a little while. Eventually they came outside, and that definitely, and there was just like a couple. Wasn't a lot of people by any means. And, that grew as the night went on. There was a few more. It never got super busy, but it definitely got more fun than at the beginning. And a little bit of a blah, but it was. I had fun, and they seemed to be digging it. I felt like it sounded good, so I wasn't too heartbroken about it or anything like that. But a little bit of a weird night, as I'll have plenty of those. But so that was the Friday. I think that was actually July 1st. So then July 2nd, I was actually in a place called Lock 12 Music. Now this was in Bellevue, Iowa. And I never played here. I was kind of a random show to get. And I think I found this place through Indie on the Move. And it was a 3-hour drive. But it was I get kind of burnt out of the interstate driving. This was like more of a highway right on the Mississippi River, and there's a bunch of these like little towns. It was a beautiful weather out, so it just felt kind of cool driving in that area. And there was got a little not mountainous, but there were some hills, up and down, and I don't know, put me in a good headspace before I even got there. And there was a ton of these tiny little towns on the way out, and I drove, they almost seemed like beach towns because of the way the weather was, the part of the year. And that's definitely what Bellevue felt like when I got there. And so I got there. The place, definitely looks a little bit on the older side. And I got in there pretty early. I set everything up. They had their own sound system that I just plugged my gear into. And I was talking to one of the owners, which I didn't really know was the owner at the time, but he was talking about how it used to be a music store. And so that was interesting to me, since, I worked in a music store for 10 years, so gave me some extra stuff to talk about, probably. But, I feel like it just sounded good out of the gates. We didn't really have to try too hard. Wasn't super busy, but there were people there at first. And they were appreciating what I was doing. The booker and the owners were just overly nice and really generous with what they were saying and stuff. So made me feel pretty good. And my breaks, I'd walk out to it's right on the Mississippi, so I'd go out there and get a little peace of mind and go back in. And I was supposed to be a 3-hour set. I ended up doing 4 because about a half hour till close. There was this big event in town that they were kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing. Well, it's kind of like a hybrid. It was kind of both good and bad because everybody showed up at about, I think it was supposed to be done at 1 a.m. and everybody showed up about 12:45. So I ended up playing an extra hour, just, winging a lot of stuff, seeing what happens, throwing. But I mean, trying to make it pretty poppy, and I think I did a good job of it, and I got people dancing and singing along, and it's really everything you'd hope for in a show. Obviously, at that point, was leaning a little bit harder on the cover songs, but I wanted those people to have a good time, so that way they'd want to come back and see me, and maybe I can, they'll listen to some of my originals in the meantime, because they got some stickers and magnets out and stuff, and or maybe they just look me up on the Spotify from the sign, and so then the next time maybe I'll get away with more originals. I mean, I did a fair amount at the beginning, but at that point in the night, I mean, it was pretty cover based. And after that, it took me a while to tear down, but the owners were kind of still there, kind of just hanging out, and I ended up talking to them for a really, really long time. They ended up making me a meal, which was like a little steak burrito, which was delicious. And, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to find some place to eat anyway. Long story short, though, I mean, I didn't get done till maybe 2 a.m. Probably got out of there maybe 3:30. I had a 3-hour drive. That puts me home at about 6:30. And, so that was a real late night. And then, of course, the Sunday was all sorts of messed up. Just trying to recatch my bearings on the sleep and whatnot. And then the next Friday, I played at a thing called Vermilion Balloon Festival, which was in Danville at the airport. Real rainy day again. Outside. I mean, they had a tent, but it was outside. Definitely kind of hurt the draw. I think that the weather was so bad, and they couldn't get a lot of the hot air balloons up in the air, I think, because of the weather. But it was kind of like a carnival type feel. It was very similar in a lot of ways to like carnival, I think. And I was the first musician, and it was kind of the opening, or like ease them into it kind of act. And with my one-man band performance, I feel like that was a pretty good call. And they had this crazy, legit sound setup that I probably didn't really need, but it was nice to have, my own sound people, and they were really easy to work with, and they made it sound really good. And there wasn't a lot of people there by any means. There's probably 7 people when I started, and maybe 15 by the time I ended, but it felt good to play and sound good. And one of the guys that books that, Peter, I think is his name, he books in that area a lot. So, and he actually had me booked at a show I'm going to talk about later, called a place he owns called Vermilion River Beer Company. But he's booked me for some other things, and it's all. I was gonna say I'm supposed to have 2 shows this day, which would have been crazy because I would have been 3 to 4:30 in Danville, have to drive to Urbana after that, and I would have probably driven to Urbana first to set everything up, or as close as I could get it without, and then I came back, then I would have played the show, then I would have came back and finished setting up and play for another 2 hours, but it got canceled because of the rain, so I didn't have to worry about that second show, and that was probably for the better. But I was gonna do it. I was I was up for the adventure, just to roll the dice a little bit. Maybe I would have started a little late or something, but I think I could have made it happen, and I'm always up to try. And but anyway, so that show got canceled. I was a little relieved by that, but didn't have as much going on. And I just found out pretty recently that was going to be Wolf's last night staying with us, so it was kind of cool to. I mean, we didn't hang out till late, but I helped him with some recording stuff and getting his album together, and it was a mistake in a lot of ways because it made it so I only slept for an hour and a half again. And I had to get up. I was playing at the Vine Street Market near O'Fallon in the morning, and that's down near St. Louis. And the show started at 9, so that means I had to be there at 8, which means at 2.5 hours, I was up at, I had to try to leave by 5:30, which means probably up by 4:30 to get out there. Man, those old wrestling meets really prepared me for that kind of thing. And I was on an hour and a half of sleep, which made that trip extra rough. And then I got there and got everything all set up. I was a little bit later than I wanted to be, but had plenty of time to get everything set up and looking good and sounding decent. And I played for about 45 minutes, and then the rain came, and it came hard. And I don't know. So I think may have messed up one of my pedals, because later at the night show, because I had 2 shows that day. One of them definitely wasn't working right. And then eventually another one quit working, so I wonder if that was because of it or not, because of that specific downpour. Probably rained for a good 45 minutes, and then what I ended up and did was just played acoustic for the rest of the time. Kind of moved my stuff back, get it off the ground to save it from the water. But, they were paying me, and I wanted to make more tips, and I don't know. So I just did the rest of it completely unplugged, and I think that worked out okay. But that driving back was tough. I had to pull over to kind of grab some caffeine, because I was like slapping myself to kind of keep awake. Had the air on full blast, chewing gum, everything you can think of, loud music to try to stay awake. But at a certain point, I just had to pull over and rest my eyes for a few minutes, and then made it the rest of the way back. But I had the show at the Casper Brewing Company, which was 6 to 10, so a little bit earlier. So it was a 7 hours of playing day. Of course, I got that little rain break that I probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But anyway, so long day. I was kind of halfway dreading the night show, like getting everything set up and sounded good. It's really just the setup, teardown things that kind of wear on me sometimes. The playing part's always fun, even if it doesn't go amazingly. It's still a good time. It's still something I enjoy doing and trying to crack the code and all that. And then, it was a 4-hour set, which I haven't done those as much lately, but, I know I could do it, no problem. But after playing probably 2.5 hours in the morning, I was like, that might be a little rougher. And then I had the show the night before. But turned out to just be a great show. Probably my favorite of the weekend, honestly. Weather was great. I was outside, great crowd on the patio, and I was exhausted, but the adrenaline sometimes will just carry you through. And definitely did. Had a couple repeat customers that had seen me pretty recently somewhere else, which was nice to find out about. And I don't know, it was just a good night. I mean, I wasn't... Sometimes when you have really low expectations, I think they're easily met and exceeded. And that may have been the case, but I was good and warmed up and ready to rock on time, and got a fun, interactive crowd almost right away. So definitely cannot complain. And so then the next Thursday, which this would have been last Thursday at this point, I was at the Vermilion River Beer Company, which was booked by the guy I had mentioned before that did the Vermilion Balloon Festival. There was like a little bit of a booking mix up there. I think they were double booked it, but he was going to have me play earlier, which would have been fine, but the other band ended up and canceled for some reason. So, he already had the backup, which was me, booked, so didn't really affect much. It was just a little bit of a change in thinking, like, I'm going to have to go earlier, change my day around, and then, change back to just the original plan. And, but it still worked out, and I kind of was under the impression, too, that it was going to be I was going to be using mostly their gear. I'm going to be inside, but it was outside, which was better, I think. And I had to use all my own gear, and I was trying some new things, and my tuner pedal was still kind of messed up. So I don't know. It was kind of getting my kick drum loud enough was a little bit of a struggle, and I had to do a couple like finagling type things like right before I would start to make it sound better. But man, was it easy to sound good. It just felt nice. It was just a quick 2-hour set outside, kind of evening. I think it was like 5:30 to 7:30. I may have played a little bit long, but I do remember after that show, though, like, I was like, when I was tearing down, I was like, Jesus, because this next week I had that one, I had a Friday show, 2 Saturday shows, and a Sunday show, and supposedly Tuesday. So I was like, it was like the start of, I was just like, man, setting up this stuff, and I had a little bit of apprehension about it. To say the least. But that show went well, and I was like, okay, well, the next show is the Cellar in Pontiac on Friday. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a fun show, because if I can just sound that good that I sounded the night before, then it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people that I know might show up, and, Pontiac's my hometown, so I thought I'd have some hometown support. And I did, but it didn't really I was playing 8 to 11. Probably didn't really happen until about 10:30. So this was another, and I don't know. I just didn't feel quite right the whole night. I think it has something to do, I've had to use a different guitar lately. My original Martin guitar, the bridge is starting to separate from the body. So I've just yesterday started the arduous task of the re-glue, which probably one of my least favorite repairs to do, but it's just messy, and I don't know, it never feels quite right. Like it, I've gotten it to work a bunch of times, but it's just I don't know, it seems like there should be a more clean cut way of doing it. But anyway, so I had to use this other Martin, which still needed a repair on it. I had to the saddle on it needed to be shaved a little bit so it could sit right and be over the pickup under the bridge or under the saddle, so it would hit it right. Because I'd use this guitar, it's probably my second nice acoustic electric Martin that I bought, but it's been a long time since I've used it, because the saddle didn't sit right, and some of the strings were almost like dead strings. Like I think it was like the D and the G in the middle just didn't ever ring quite right, because the bridge was, I don't know whether it just expanded because of the humidity, and it was just like the saddle was caught in there, kind of funny. So I actually I did guitar repair for 10 years, so it's like I know how to fix all this stuff, but I get kind of lazy with it. And I think before I was more lazy with it because I was doing that stuff at work all the time, so I was like, oh, I don't want to go home and do more of that type of stuff. But I actually, I really don't mind doing it now that you do. It's a lot about just jumping in, and I just haven't taken the leap in quite some time. But anyway, so I had to sand down the saddle to make this guitar work, and I was trying to find a nice vise to hold it in place, and I went down to my landlord's because they have a bunch of tools and stuff. I thought they might have one, which they did, but they had this even nicer thing that probably for car repair, but it's just like a rotating thing that you can use to kind of, wasn't sand down, but grind down, because it wasn't like sandpaper, it was metal, but not like a Dremel, but like a big spinning one. I don't know what they're called, but anyway. And that made pretty quick work of what I was doing, and really made the guitar sound great. But what I'm getting to is, I think that mixing this guitar indoor, because something I've noticed over the last week is the indoor shows have all been rough. The outdoor shows have all been, pretty great. And I think it has something to do with the low end on that guitar, because I think I pushed too much low end indoor, and then it's hard to sing, to cut through, so I just can't hear it quite right, doesn't feel quite right. no matter how, I tend to just turn the guitar down when I'm not hearing it right. But anyway, so it was that cellar show was a little bit rough, really. I mean, what was not my favorite. I just couldn't get in the pocket all night, and I didn't really know that may have been the issue quite yet. And I don't know, it just didn't feel right all night. And then some of my favorite people, great crew showed up. A lot of people I hadn't seen in a long time, and they came up. So of course I played for an extra hour and a half. So I didn't get done till 12:30, and I had the Kankakee Farmers Market the next morning, which was real smart of me to do. Especially the next thing, which is I went and hung out with all these people afterwards. Again, some of my favorite people. It was probably a mistake to do that, even though I hadn't seen them in a long time. Great to see everybody. But ultimately, getting an hour and a half of sleep and then getting up and having a 2-show day was pretty rough. I mean, it was a long day. And then, I was saying couldn't quite get my voice in the pocket at the cellar. The Vermilion one, which was out, the Vermilion River Beer Company, which was outside, sounded pretty great. The cellar, I don't know, couldn't quite crack it. I mean, it was okay, but I wasn't comfortable, I guess, is the big thing. The comfortability wasn't easy for me to try to make it sound good. And I was like pushing my voice in ways that, wore it out essentially. And so I was like, had a lot of apprehension about the farmer's market the next morning, because I was like, okay, I'm going on 0 sleep. I sang for 4.5 hours, and it didn't feel good like for most of it. And I was just like, this is going to be a rough one. Singing in the morning is always harder anyway. And so I got there. I was a little later than I wanted to be, but I made it, and I got everything all set up, and I just sounded great. It's like, I don't know what, I couldn't quite figure out, again, outside. So that's maybe the clue that I didn't really put together before. So I was outside, felt like it sounded great, had it was like one of the busiest Kankakee Farmers Markets I think I've ever played. And, I was, again, apprehensive about my vocals being rough, and it just felt good right from the get-go. I mean, I kind of warmed up on the way up there, but nothing too crazy, because I knew I had, I think it was 5 hours of singing that day. And yeah, I don't know. It was just a really good one. But then I had a 3-hour drive to this place called the Wagner House in Freeport, Illinois. And it was a long drive. And, hour and a half of sleep again. I think that had a lot to do with it. I actually did pull over and try to sleep for like a half hour on the road as well. And then I got there. It was a pretty cool little place. It's weird load-in. Had to, go through a maze kind of to get all my gear. And I mean, I didn't really need to bring all my stuff, because they did have some gear there, but I'm familiar with my stuff. I'd rather just the way that I do it. And I probably shouldn't even have done the one-man band performance, and there was a little bit of confusion in the show, because I'd forgotten that the booker had said if we were outside it was going to be 7 to 9, if we were inside it was going to be 8 to 10. So the whole time I just had 7 to 9 in my head, and I was, there early enough to get started by 7. So, all my gear was set up. I had to restring a guitar. Even that, I still had over 20 minutes till 7 after doing that and sound checking and everything. And, because I broke a string at that was the nail in the casket for finishing or stopping playing that extra hour and a half at the cellar in Pontiac. But anyway, so I had all this time, and then as I was rereading the email about the show, because there was something else that was a little weird with this one, is they had said they like most of the original music. So I'll get to that in a second. But so I was re-looking at it to make sure that this was that place and I was in the right. And I was like, oh shoot, if it's indoor it says 8 to 10 instead of 7 to 9. So as I was going to try to, because the booker was there when I got there, So as I was going to find her this time, she was like, I saw her, and she was walking out to the parking lot. I kind of followed her, and then she got in a car and left. So, I was like, uh-oh, am I supposed to start? And before that, I think I went up to the bartender and told him I was starting at 7, which might have been confusing to them. But anyway, so after that, I went up and I talked to that same bartender again and was like, oh, I think I'm supposed to do 8 to 10 since it's indoor. And I emailed the booker again to ask what they were thinking. So I went back and just kind of sat and just was kind of waiting for a response. And then the bartender came up. She's like, well, I don't think it's going to be very busy tonight, so maybe you should just do 7 to 9. And, well, obviously that and the beginning part of that, is I don't think it's going to be very busy tonight. It was a little bit of a bummer. And, I'd already done the sound check and had to be like, you could hear a pin drop while I was playing, maybe. Yeah, definitely after. It was very quiet. It was like a restaurant, so people were eating dinner. I mean, I kind of get it. Like, they just wanted me to be background music. But, anyway, so she was, like, saying that I should just start. So I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't hear back from the booker. And, I was like, okay, well, if it's going to be slow later, I'd rather just, knock it out. And, there weren't a ton of people at the beginning, and there wasn't even a ton of people at the end. But what happened was I played from 7 to about 8:45. I was only supposed to do 7 to 9 if 2-hour set if I started at 7. And a couple people came in, then a big table came in, and a couple more people came in, and I was playing, and I could feel like a little bit more attention be kind of focused on me. It was a weird setup to that point because I was trying to do all my original songs, but I couldn't do them at like full exertion. I couldn't do them at full volume because even with my system turned down very quietly, I still was like having to like whisper sing kind of, which isn't super comfortable for me to do. I'm not really good at not going balls to the wall. So, it felt awkward, and like I said, you could hear a pin drop. But, the crowd was still being nice. I don't know if I was getting pity tips or what was going on, but, I'd gotten some early, which I probably wouldn't have gotten if, I'd waited. And then this couple groups of people came in, and, I started doing a little bit more covers. And that was the other thing, is, like, picking my originals that were quiet, because I didn't want to, like, try to blast the people that were there eating dinner away. I was just playing a bunch of these kind of off, like B-side kind of original songs that I haven't practiced in who knows how long. But, they went okay. It wasn't like any of them were bad. And I still think there's a little something to like the using the different guitar and the low end not sounding quite right. But anyway, so lost my train of thought, sorry. But so this group of people came in at 8:45. I was like, well, I want to keep these people here. They seem into what I'm doing. So I played till about 9:45. So I ended up playing an extra 45 minutes essentially. And I started throwing more covers in towards the end because I could tell that they were, they liked the originals. They were being nice about them. So it's not like I gave up on the originals. I still played a good amount of them, but I definitely threw a lot more covers in. And I made more tips, but that made it 5 hours of playing that day on an hour and a half of sleep with a lot of driving. And then, of course, I was leaving later than I wanted to, and I had a show the next day. So, it was pretty wild. And there was something to the fact, too, that, they were very specific. They wanted most of the original music, but I just didn't really understand. Like, I was excited to play all originals. Like, I wanted to, but then having the disappointment of having to be, like, very quiet when I was playing them, like, whisper sing all of them. And I don't know. It was definitely a weird vibe. It's like, if I was playing like that, just kind of background music, throwing a lot more covers in there, I could play a lot of soft covers that... But, when I'm playing my songs, I'm, like, in it, I'm, like, in the moment and really trying to perform. If I'm just being, like, a kind of jukebox type thing, I have plenty of songs that are covers that would work fine there. But if if I'm playing my songs, like I wanna do them, you know. I don't wanna like half-ass them, kind of. So I don't know. That part was weird. I thought it would be like a focused crowd that wanted to hear original music, but wasn't really that. So a little disappointed about that part, but it still ended up, it was fine. It was like a 3-hour drive home, so I didn't get back till pretty late. It was probably 3 or something, and then ended up, and the last show was at the Cast Iron Pub on Sunday. And having all these shows, I was like, you know, I was exhausted, and obviously, but you know, I'm all for it. You know, I don't have the day job anymore, so anytime I can play and do it, I'm on it. And this is like the busiest time of year. It's the most like tons of outdoor events, tons of things going on. So it's a great time to be a musician in the summertime. And you know, business is kind of booming this time of year. So I was like, yeah, I'll definitely do it. And so it's 5 to 8 set, and I was a little worried. Well, definitely about my voice at this point, because we're talking, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 shows in 3 days. This will be my 5th show in 4 days, and so I'm like, I don't know. And you know, 5 o'clock is such an early time slot to try to be up and ready to rock. And then I miss my exit on the way. Usually I just, you know, use my GPS, but I was on the phone with my mom, and for some reason it usually, you know, just says when I need to take what exit through the Bluetooth, and it didn't for some reason. So that made me like extra late. And then there wasn't a ton of people when I got there to set up, and you know, I only had 45 minutes. So I was like, uh-oh, this might not be a good turnout. But it did end up, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised by the amount of people that showed up on a Sunday at, you know, 5 p.m. And then not only was it like more people than I expected, which, you know, by more people, I'm still only talking 20 tops, but very focused, very into what I was doing. I still kind of felt like I couldn't quite crack it. It was indoor, so I was using the other guitar, so the low end thing. And I think by the end of it, I'd turned the low end down enough by the last hour. But anyway, it was only booked 5 to 8, but with the caveat, you know, if there's people there, I'd play an extra hour for extra money, and that ended up and went that way because there were still people there, and you know, I sounded decent. Like I said, couldn't quite crack it, but it wasn't the worst I've ever sounded, probably. And doing the one-man band, and really just fun crowd that was digging what I was doing. There was one fella in there who kept saying really nice things, and one of them was very memorable. He kept saying, you know, you should maybe look into playing some bigger venues. I'd pay $20 to see you, no problem. So I was like, that made me feel nice. And it was his birthday too, which the fact that he came there and spent it with me was good. And his I believe wife was, you know, dancing a lot and into it, and it was just, I don't know, it was just fun. Good crowd, good people, fun show. And then today, actually, I was supposed to have another show, so this would have been the Tuesday of the Rivian show, but they had sent me the wrong date. So that's been, you know, I had all these specific, when I have show days, I have a specific plan on how to, you know, prepare that kind of, and it's been kind of a little bit annoying having to, it's like it was booked through somebody, like a third party for the city of Bloomington, and she sent me the wrong date, essentially is what happened. Like when we originally booked it for today, and then she sent me some weird date, and I was like, don't you mean the 19th? And she said yes, but she really meant the 20th. So that was, you know, kind of threw off the day a little bit. It's allowed me to get a lot of extra stuff done, but I've also had to reschedule lessons because I thought it was today, and now I have to reschedule my lessons because I have it tomorrow now. So it's been a little bit of an annoyance, but whatever. But the extra paperwork stuff for this show has been a little chaotic for me as well. But by tomorrow when I'm actually playing. And they asked for an extra hour too than was originally planned. But hopefully, it'll all work out and it'll be great and I'll have a good time and the tips will be plenty. But we will see. And then I'll be talking about that next week. I was gonna quick update on the live album. That's gonna be the way it's looking, August 19th. So actually an exact month from today. I'm trying to get it so they can write my name right on Spotify, but apparently that's a big ordeal. So we'll see what happens. So I'm doing my first. I'm calling it Collection 1, kind of a single where I'm doing 3 songs because 4 songs is an EP, 3 is a single, 1 to 3 is a single. So that'll be coming out August 19th. I'm gonna do another one probably 6 weeks from that, which will be more of a EP type length of song. I'll call that Collection 2. And then I'll do the full length another 6 weeks from that. So really excited to get that stuff out. I'm really excited to get the videos edited and out. So I'll be talking about this Rivian show next week. I have a show at a country club, Arrowhead Country Club, Friday near Peoria. And then Saturday I have a private party in Pontiac. Fun to say. That I'll be talking about. So that's pretty much it. It's been a pretty wild July so far, and I think even like this next week, even though I have the Wednesday show now, so I have Wednesday, Friday, Saturday is the slowest one, and then I'll have 3 on the last weekend of the month. So been pretty wild, but it's an adventure and it's good times. Not every show can be the best, not the most amazing, but there's a lot of good ones and a lot of great ones. So, just having fun with it. I've been getting better and better feedback from audiences that are saying really nice, supportive things that make me feel like I'm doing something right. I don't know what, but something I'm doing right. So, anyway, that's what I'll be talking about. I appreciate anybody who takes the time to listen, and I will talk to you next time. All right, have a good one. Bye.